welcome to the season 2 final episode of the JCMoseley FC podcast. And for this final episode, we are here together recording on the same screen. How about that?
It's great, man. In New York City.
In New York City.
I don't know anywhere else. So
yeah.
The greatest city in the world to me. But yeah, happy to be here.
Yeah, happy to be here as well, and happy to be talking in person this time instead of behind a camera.
Yeah.
So we have a lot to kind of talk about. We're going to wrap up the season, just kind of what happened towards the end of last season, and talk a little bit about the Club World Cup as well. It's going to be a good one, I think. So Should we dive right in and just talk right about the Champions League final?
Yeah, absolutely. The Champions League final was, honestly, I wasn't expecting this, man. It was, I'm very surprised. PSG just dominated the game. I don't think, I haven't been alive for that long, but I've never seen a Champions League final so one-sided since I started watching football, which was a long time ago. So, completely dominated the game from A to Z. I was expecting maybe after the 2-0, like that Inter will react because, Inter has always been that team that will come back.
Yeah.
And it's like they couldn't move. Yeah. It's like, it's like they were like getting bullied by the bullies at the school, and then they would just like finish me off,
Yeah.
At the end of the day, it was 5-0. That was insane.
Yeah. Crazy.
Yeah.
Crazy. I mean, yeah, like you said, I don't think I remember a one-sided final. Even, Champions League final aside, like just any final, I don't think I've seen one that was that dominant for a long time.
Mm-hmm.
And I think, we were, from a neutral perspective, I was kind of hoping for a PSG versus Barcelona final. I felt like that would have been a little bit more of an interesting one.
Mm-hmm.
But then when Inter got through, I was like, oh, well, maybe Inter will give them a good game. And I was like, nope, that was wrong. Inter did not even show up for that game, which I was very surprised by, because they've been a very strong team. Barcelona, a strong team that they'd knocked out. So, that was a real shock to me that it was that dominant. But credit to PSG and their players. They just, right from minute one, kind of full speed. And to go, 2-0 up within the first, 25, 30 minutes, something like that. I remember Inter had one chance. They had a header from a corner that went just wide at 2-0. I think if that had gone in, maybe it would have been a different game. But other than that, Inter didn't really have a lot of opportunities, and they didn't really create much, and they just let PSG run over them, really. I was very, very surprised.
Yeah, I think at the beginning of the game, I don't know. Let me see. I don't know exactly when they scored, but I know at the beginning of the game, PSG. It was a final that we're expecting to be, to have a lot of different things going on. But what I remember is that Inter actually had the first chances. I don't know if you remember, whenever they were playing, like they had the first chances in the game. And the very early chances, Thuram had a few chances, so he almost scored. And then Hakimi scored, and it was 1-0. That happens in finals too. They consider early, but then Doué out of nowhere scores a second goal, and I think after that second goal, for some reason I could feel like Inter just kind of gave up.
Yeah.
After that,
I think they kind of felt like it was over at that point.
Yeah, it was 2-0. Yeah. They were like, they were running still, obviously they were still playing, but I just couldn't feel like they believed anymore.
Yeah.
It's like they were like, oh yeah, we're done, And then went to halftime, and I was expecting a comeback from Inter, to be honest. Even one goal to try to, push it.
Mm-hmm.
And then the third goal happened, and I was like, okay, yeah, that's game over. On the 63rd minute.
At 3-0, there was no going back from that.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, so that was insane. And then they just kept scoring, and I was like, wow, I wasn't expecting this. And PSG, after all those years, we're making fun of them for the longest time. Like, that just shows how it's a team sport.
Yeah.
At the end of the day, it doesn't matter who you have within typical Neymar, Messi, Mbappe. Probably like Messi and Neymar, at least at this point, they're like some of the best, especially Messi, like arguably the greatest of all time. They had all those players. They had Ramos, all those players, Champions League winners. They couldn't win it.
Mm-hmm.
And now they have a young team that most of those players are just starting to play, really. They're barely 20 years old.
Yeah.
And they're playing, and then they're winning the Champions League. That just tells you that, it doesn't matter who you bring on the team. Like you have to have it, you to play as a team.
Yeah.
And this is just a testament of how the beauty of football. That if you don't play as a team, doesn't matter how good you are, you're gonna lose.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. Well, I think that's it. PSG's philosophy previously was try and buy all the best players in the world and assemble a super team.
Mm-hmm.
And they kind of did that, but it really never worked out for them. And yeah, they kind of changed their strategy a little bit, focus more on developing their youngsters, developing the younger players, and that's clearly been a good decision on their part to do that. And yeah, I mean, I think you like to see the team, like you like to see a good team performance like that. Everybody's playing for each other, everybody's together, everybody's kind of buying into what the manager and the coaches are asking of them as well. I mean, I felt it's a good moment for Luis Enrique to win another Champions League. He's done a great job since he's been there at PSG. So.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, and then they scored, like the 73rd minute, they scored a goal, and the 86th minute, they scored a fifth goal.
Mm-hmm.
And I mean, Luis Enrique, I think that's credit to him. Like, I don't care what people say, like, he's really transformed that team. And that's only his second season.
Yeah.
And also, I know we're going to talk about that, but they won the treble. They won La Liga, Coupe de France, and now the Champions League, which is insane for a French team, And people make Marseille was the only French team that won, and they've been making jokes about like how they don't have anything else to say. That they can be like, oh, we're still the top team in France because we won the Champions League. They can't say that anymore.
Yeah,
because that was like ages ago.
Yeah, in the 90s.
1993.
Yeah.
So, yeah, absolutely. But yeah, what do you think about the Champions League this season? Like, how do you feel? I mean, obviously, the new format.
Yeah.
Like, what do you think about that? What's the takeaway?
I think looking back, I think it was some good changes in hindsight. I mean, I think a lot of the group phase games felt like there was maybe a little bit more at stake sometimes. And, it's a chance to see the best teams playing against each other. I mean, it kind of, in a sense, is a little bit like the watered down version of the Super League that they proposed to have all the best teams play against each other. But it was very entertaining, I think. And then, the knockout stages are always very entertaining too. I'm glad they didn't change anything about that, because I think that the format that they have with the knockouts, the kind of two legs home and away, it works really well. We saw some really, really great ties over the two legs in a lot of those games. And yeah, I think it's just one season, so I think hard to judge for sure, but initial thoughts are that it was a good start.
Yeah,
absolutely. What do you think?
I think that the Champions League this season was very interesting. It was good. I think I really like this better, just because you have more games. Obviously, instead of 2 games, Tuesday, Wednesday, you also have some Thursdays. So you have more games, and that's why you want more football. And then also the teams will play a different team every time, which was I really liked about that. So it's not like you play the same team twice; you play different teams. So that gives you more matchups that are more exciting. So I really think that, even though we all know they did it for the money, I can't complain about this new format. More games, that's better for us. And then also, I just felt like I really like they took away also the away rules, the away goal rules, because I don't know if you seen the past couple of years, there's been more goals in the Champions League. That just because at the end of the day, it's about who scores the most goals. It's not about if you consider less goals at home or away. Now it's like if you score more goals, you go through.
Yeah, it makes it a bit more. It's less likely for teams to just sit back and park the bus.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So definitely, I think that was really good overall to see what we saw, and then I really believe that this is the right way forward.
Yeah.
Do you want to talk about the Europa League final?
Yes, we should.
Yeah.
Even though I don't really want to. I'm not happy about it, but we should talk about it.
Yeah. So Tottenham and United, unbelievably, I don't know how they did it, but they made it to the final this year, and they faced each other. And just to recap, I believe, let me double check that, but I believe that they finished 16th and 17th in the
I
Premier
think
League.
Man United finished 15th in the end.
Yeah.
And Tottenham finished 17th. But
Yeah.
you can double check.
Yeah. United 42 points, 11 wins, 9 draws, and 18 losses. Like I felt bad for Chelsea, because they finished 12th. So 15th, I mean, and it's also United, like wow. And Tottenham, how are they're gonna be in the Champions League next season?
Yeah.
They literally finish like 17th in the Premier League. They're still gonna be the champion. Like this
One
is a
place
robbery.
above the relegation, and it's a crime against football, really, in my opinion. But no, I mean, what they lost. How many games did Tottenham lose? 20, 21 games over the season? Something like that, I think.
Yeah, something like that. That's
domestically in the Premier League. But
yeah, they lost in total, 22 games.
22 games.
22 games.
22 out of 38 games, by the way.
And they are still in the Europa League final.
I mean, I don't know whether to be impressed or annoyed. Because, well, I think one of the big changes to the Europa League this season with the new Champions League format was, before teams that finished third in their group in the Champions League would drop down into the Europa League. But that didn't happen this year. And I read a statistic that something like, I don't remember the exact number, but a majority of the teams that have played in Europa League finals over the last 10 years have been teams that dropped down from the Champions League.
Okay.
So I think what that says is the quality of the Europa League has dropped a little bit. It's maybe not as difficult of a competition as it was with teams not dropping down from the Champions League. I get that maybe some people might not like that as an explanation. I think it's still very impressive for two teams that just had a really, really horrible domestic season, managed to get their way to a European final. It kind of got to a point in the season where those two teams, that was all they had to play for.
That was the season.
They'd kind of given up on the league at that point. They're, out of some of the cups, and towards that back end of the season, there really wasn't much else they had left to play for. And I don't know if you watched the final at all.
I barely watched it.
It was one of the worst finals I've ever watched in my entire life. The quality was so bad. The game was terrible. It was such a bad game.
And United dominated the game. I'm looking at the stats right now. 74% possession, 6 shots on target, and 16 shots for United. Wow. It was a one-sided final, and it still lost 16 shots against 3. So I'm gonna start with United. 6 shots for United, 3 for Tottenham. 6 shots on target, 1 for Tottenham. 74% possession, 26% possession for Tottenham. 514 passes, 184 for Tottenham. United completely dominated the game, and I'm so surprised that they were not able to score. And Tottenham still won 1-0. Yeah, that just pretty much sums up what you said. It was kind of boring.
And the goal too was like a very scrappy goal. Like it was just crossed into the box, I think, and lots of players trying to kick at it, and it somehow found its way into the back of the net. But it was it was not a good final. But I mean, credit to the manager. He said back in September, he said, "I always win something in my second season." And he did.
And they fired the guy.
And then they fired him, which I can understand that, because the Premier League is like what they really care about. But on the other hand, 17 years since Tottenham had won a trophy, this guy's finally won you a trophy, but that's not good enough for you.
I think they just didn't want to go, especially they want to really perform well in the Champions League.
Yeah.
Because now they have the Champions League, they want to have another manager that comes in and does well there, and also keeps them in the Premier League. I mean, that makes sense. They've reevaluated everything. Thank you for giving us the trophy, but we're not happy with the Premier League.
Yeah.
And I mean, 17th is horrible.
Yeah.
It's terrible.
Maybe learning a little bit too from Man United last season, when Eric Ten Hag's job was kind of on the line, but he won the FA Cup, and then they kept him on. and he was sacked within a few months of the new season, and that really didn't work out. And now, I mean, Man United probably at the lowest point they've been in a very, very long time. No European football at all next season. The state of like the mindset and the mentality and the attitude around the club just seems to be pretty bad. I think it could be another very long and difficult season for them.
Yeah, and that just tells you that how how hard it is to really stay on top of the game and like try to stay up there and try to compete every year. So I mean, also that also shows that Ronaldo wasn't the problem. CR7 wasn't the problem.
Mm-hmm.
He was saying that there's deeper issues. It doesn't matter who you bring in. You can bring Messi on that team. He's still gonna struggle.
Yeah,
it doesn't matter. I think they have a lot of internal issues.
Yeah,
that they have. I mean, I'm a rival fan, so I don't really care. They can stay 17th every year if they want to, but I think they really have to fix the issues. It looks like they have, and yeah. We'll see what happens, how they react next season. I mean, I know they have a great coach, so we'll see how he's able to, pull the team together and try to, to go far in this competition. But we'll see.
You want to talk about the Conference League final?
Yeah, our club, Chelsea Football Club, won it. The first club in the history to win all 3 UEFA competitions. I know at the beginning of the season, I was telling you how this is what I wanted to say at the end of the season, and this has come true. We won the Champions League, the Europa League, and the Conference League. So it was a great final. The first half was terrible.
Yeah, I'd say the first hour was pretty painful to watch as a Chelsea fan. I don't know what it was, but for some reason it just felt like some of those players maybe went into the game just expecting that they were going to win. And, Betis, I think, were really unlucky to actually be only 1 up at halftime. I think they had enough chances to where they could have maybe been 2 or 3 up. And at that point, it would have been a long way back for us. But yeah, I think a lot of credit has to go to the manager, Maresca. He made some good changes. And the game kind of changed at halftime, or in the second half. It took us a few minutes into the second half to kind of find our rhythm. But once we found the rhythm, things started to look a lot better. And then Cole Palmer turned up for this game.
Absolutely.
I mean, we've said we're a little concerned about his drop in goal scoring form, but 2 assists, and he kind of just took the game by the neck and said, "I'm gonna just make stuff happen," and he did. A great ball over the top for Enzo Fernandez to header in for our first goal, and then kind of the cutting back and forth and sending the defender back to the changing room almost with some skill, and putting it across for Nicholas Jackson to make it 2-1. And those 2 goals kind of happened very quickly. And honestly, at that point, once we went 2-0 up, I kind of felt like we were always going to win it.
Absolutely.
Yeah,
definitely. Yeah, I think that it was a good game for us, at least after the first hour, of course. Hernandez, I remember I was watching at the pub, and Hernandez scored, and I was so happy. And Jackson, okay, we'll come back to him about him later, but he scored the goal in the final, which was good. And Sancho also, that unfortunately left Chelsea, scored the 3rd goal, and Caicedo it was a celebration at this point. So it was a good final overall. We love to see Chelsea in any final, even if it's not a Champions League. It was good after the past couple of years that were like terrible. This was a reward for us.
Yeah.
To be able to okay, we're back. We're gonna be in the Champions League next season. It was like kind of a warning for everybody, our rival. So I'm happy. Honestly, I'm very happy that we won this final. We pretty much walk all over this competition. To be honest, it was so I think we lost once in the quarterfinal or something like that, and I don't think they were taking it seriously. Honestly.
Yeah. I mean, ultimately, at the end of the day, we were heavy favorites to win. We were expected to win, and we did. I think still, have to give some credit to the manager and the players, because it could be very easy to just kind of walk into that competition and go, we're going to win this easy. And, some of the games, especially in the group stage, we didn't really have to try that hard.
Yeah.
But, I think it was good to see that we managed to get the job done. I do feel for Betis a little bit, because they had a good team. Their fans were pretty good at the final, and they were unlucky to not be further ahead at halftime. But that's football.
Yeah,
If you want to win, you got to be the best.
Absolutely. I think this is this is it was a good final, honestly. And then Real Betis, obviously they tried. They made it there all the way to the final. That was good for them, but it was Chelsea there. So as I was saying, when you go to a competition that you expected to win, there's a lot of pressure. You can be like, oh yeah, we're just gonna win this game, and that was kind of the first half where the players didn't really care about, oh yeah, Chelsea should be able to win this game easily. But the second half, they came back and they really were trying, and whenever those players try and play well together, they refuse to lose. They were like, whenever you're in the final, you don't want to think about going home and sad, especially we expected to win like this, and how bad it would be for the club. Go home and be so sad, fly back to London and be like, oh, we lost, kind of shit. But whenever you win a final like that, even if it's not a Champions League, you go home happy, and that's what we're gonna do.
Yeah.
So you want to take a little break?
Yeah, let's take a short break and then we'll go around the league. Okay, we are back, and we're going to go around the leagues. We're going to start with the Premier League. Pretty comprehensive champions, Liverpool. We kind of knew for quite a while that they were going to win the league, and they won it pretty early, actually. I don't know. I think they deserve to win it. They've been the best team throughout the season. What the manager's come in and done is very impressive, I think. I think a lot of people thought after Jurgen Klopp left, he'd been there for a long time, things could kind of go wrong a little bit, at least for a few seasons. But, he kind of came in and he's just done a really, really good job. And, Mo Salah back to his best. I think Mo Salah actually equaled the record for the goal contributions in a single season this year. He was the top goal scorer and top assister, which is crazy. He kind of stopped, his form fell off a little bit after they wrapped up the league title, but he still managed to get that done. But I don't know. I think you have to give Slot credit. I think you have to give the players credit. They, Man City kind of had a bad season by their standards. Arsenal, let's be honest, wasn't going to win the league.
Second forever.
So, I think they stepped up. They saw their opportunity and they stepped up and they took it. And it was a perfect season for them.
Yeah, I think this was probably honestly was one of the weakest seasons for this season, because Liverpool won it with 84 points, which we know that too. Even last season, it wasn't possible to do that. You can always go back to 2023, 2024. Arsenal had 89 points last season, and they finished second. And we go the season before that, we're gonna see that in 2022, 2023, Arsenal finished with 84 points, then was second. And then back to 2021, 2022, the second place had 92 points. And we can even go back one more to 2022 and 2021. Manchester City won the league with 86 points. So this was by far probably the standard wasn't as high this season, I think. But credit to Liverpool, they were better than everybody else. Obviously, that's why they're champions. Only 4 losses, 9 draws, and 25 wins.
Yeah.
And Arsenal, they always managed to not win the league. I don't know, it's been almost 20 years now. But they were a good team. They were second best, obviously. They were consistent. But, 14 draws was just too much for them to be able to hope. And City, even though we say we had a poor season, but that's a poor season I would love to have for me. 71 points. and they finished third.
Mm-hmm.
So I think to call it a bad season for me, I mean, to the standard, obviously, because they made us used to 100 points, 90 points every season. So that was poor for them.
Yeah.
Yeah, but obviously, it was about time for them to not win the league after 4 in a row.
Yeah, it was nice. It was nice to not have to watch them just walk over everybody again. To be honest, and I think too, like Liverpool with some of the signings that they've already made, bringing in like Florian Wirtz from Leverkusen. I know there's a couple others as well that off the top of my head I'm not remembering that they're bringing in, but they're strengthening their side a little bit. Obviously, City have made some signings too ahead of the Club World Cup that kind of strengthens their squad a little bit. But my hope is that it's going to be a little bit more competitive next season. I think the reason that maybe we felt like it was a little bit of a lower standard was because it wasn't competitive for a lot of the season. I mean, we kind of knew by Christmas that Liverpool were going to win the league. They were that far ahead.
Yeah, absolutely.
I mean, they I guess they kind of did what was expected of them and kept getting the results that they needed, and they picked up enough points to win. At the end of the day, that's what you got to do. It doesn't matter if it's 84 points or 100 points. If it's dependent on how everybody else does too, exactly. And you have to keep up the pace throughout the season. Chelsea managed to somehow sneak into fourth.
I'm very happy about that. I think that's why we're hoping that they will do. That will do. Chelsea finish top 4, playing the Champions League. That was the minimum of the Conference League. So this was, for me, was a very successful season.
I think it was a very successful season. Yeah, I think that those were the targets really ahead of the season, was to win the Conference League and finish in the top 5. Because the fifth place got Champions League too, and we did that. So Newcastle finishing in 5th. Good for them to be back in the Champions League. I think they'll do well. Mm-hmm. They've had a good season. Aston Villa just missing out on Champions League by a goal difference, which is heartbreaking for them.
Yeah, it must be.
I think there was some refereeing decisions in their game on the final day of the season that went against them that I think were crazy. Mm-hmm. Not to say that if it had gone their way, they would have won, but to come so close and just miss out because of goal difference kind of sucks for them. But I think they're still on a good trajectory. I think, Emery is Europa League specialist. Mm-hmm. They'll be playing in the Europa League next season. Like I said earlier, there's no teams dropping down from the Champions League. Mm-hmm. So they may feel that they have a pretty good chance of winning the Europa League next season, which would get them back into Champions League the following season. So kind of good for them. I think Nottingham Forest, if you'd have told me at the beginning of last season that they'd finish 7th, I would have told you were crazy. If you'd have asked me in March if they were finished 7th, I would have said, well, they're doing so well, like they're not going to finish that low. But they kind of had a big drop off in form towards the end of the season. It was just a little bit too much for them in the end to get Champions League football, but they will be playing European football next season. I think they've had a great season. Team that really surprised everybody in the league. I think they were the surprise team of the league this season in the Premier League.
Yeah, definitely. I don't know if you guys know about this, but essentially it was down to the last game of the season to know who we're gonna be in the top 4. So essentially, the Champions League race was more exciting than the Premier League game. So at the end of the day, Chelsea finished 4th, Newcastle 5th, and Aston Villa, which Aston Villa is, with Unai Emery, this is probably, they want to be in the Europa League, to be honest. Because, I mean, no offense to them, but the likeliness of winning the Champions League is very low. But in the Europa League, I would not put it past them. Especially with Unai Emery, who is a serial winner. I think he won like 4 or something with Sevilla or something. And it was with Villarreal too. So I think this is the place they want to be, honestly. And I think they're one of the contenders for this league, just because of Unai Emery. And just to even think about Aston Villa being in the European game, like 5 years ago, they were fighting for relegation and stuff. It was a relegation team for the longest time, and now they're there. So I think
there's their 3rd season in a row in Europe, or it will be their third season in a row now. Next season in European competitions, which is great for them.
Yeah, which is great. And then Nottingham Forest, even though they had the opportunity to play in the Champions, they were very close to win the Champions League, but we beat them in the last game. And then also they also had the opportunity to play in the Europa League. They finished 1 point behind Aston Villa, but they go in the Conference League. So for them too, it's a huge leap, from where they were a few years ago fighting for relegation.
I mean, even the season before this most recent one, they were. Where did they finish? I'm going to look here. The 23-24 season, they finished 17th.
Yeah, that's a huge improvement.
So they've improved 10 places in the league, which is significant for them. So I think yeah.
And also Nottingham Forest, not a lot of people know that, but they are a giant. They won the Champions League twice. So it's not just some random club that we're talking about here. So to be even back, obviously Champions League would have been amazing for them, but to be back to Conference League, a European final, that's a huge moment for the fans and the club.
Yeah.
So to be back there. So I think this is going to be an amazing thing, honestly.
Yeah. You want to look at the other end of the table? I mean, we already talked about Man United and Tottenham a little bit. The three relegated teams were all just really bad.
Do we even have a top six anymore, honestly?
I don't know if we do.
I think, I'm not even be Chelsea yet. Maybe if we're consistent in the next couple of years, we can be considered in top four. But right now, this is top three for me right now. Liverpool, Arsenal, and City. Honestly, because of how inconsistent we've been. Chelsea, United, and Tottenham, quite inconsistent too.
Yeah.
Now it looks like Newcastle is trying to stay up there. Even Aston Villa now is trying to stay up there. So I am just shocked. If you told me that United was going to finish 15th and Tottenham 17th, I mean, whoever bet that, if there's somebody in the world that bet that, probably made a lot of money.
Oh yeah.
Like the likeliness of this happening is very low.
Yeah, crazy.
So,
and I think if it wasn't, I mean, that's the thing. If Tottenham and if Leicester, Ipswich, and Southampton hadn't been as terrible as they've been, Tottenham and Man United would have been in a relegation fight. I mean, Tottenham 38 points. The number that they talk about, or that they usually talk about, is to hit the 40-point mark is going to keep you safe from relegation. Well, Tottenham didn't hit that this season.
That's insane.
And they're lucky that Leicester, Ipswich, and especially Southampton. I mean, Southampton just by 1 point avoided being the worst Premier League team. They finished on 12 points. They only won 2 games. They lost 30. I mean, shame. It sucks for their fans because exciting for them to come back up to the Premier League and then go straight back down again.
Yeah, and isn't it the third season in a row? Second or third season in a row?
It's definitely the second.
The championship teams that got promoted go right back to the championship. Like
it's the second season in a row.
Yeah, that's insane. That just tells you how competitive the Premier League is. And then those teams make millions. I've seen some online that Southampton made more money in TV revenue from the Premier League, just TV revenue, not overall revenue, just TV revenue from the Premier League, more than Inter. Yeah.
Oh wow.
I mean, we can probably double fact that, but I know for sure. I know how the Premier League, those teams make so much money.
Yeah.
So I even saw that there's a playoff final at Wembley for the championship team to go through, and it's probably the most expensive game ever because whoever wins that makes millions just by going in the Premier League. So pretty much some teams make as much money in the Premier League than the Champions League. That's some other team. So that a team from Austria, for example, let's say they qualify for the Champions League. Let's say even if they go to quarterfinals by some miracle, they make less money than Southampton. That just tells you that's crazy how
the Premier League is where a lot of the money is. Yeah.
I mean, everybody watches the Premier League. Even since I was a kid, growing up, the Premier League was definitely the top above everywhere else. The more exciting, especially back in the day with Chelsea, United, Arsenal, Liverpool. It was very exciting. But it's still very exciting to watch. But it's always been a very attractive league. So that's just crazy to think about that.
Yeah.
So you want to move on to La Liga?
Let's move on to Liga.
Yeah, let's talk about La Liga McDonald's. Nobody was surprised to see PSG win. It's pretty much a yearly thing, honest occurrence there. PSG, but the way they did this year was insane.
Hmm.
They only lost twice. They dominated the league, 19 points ahead of Marseille, their harsh rivals. And then we have Monaco that qualified for the Champions League, Nice that is going to play off Champions League, Lille, a Europa League, Lyon, Europa League, and Strasbourg, Conference League. And we have Reims as I think they did the relegation playoffs. I don't know how they did there. Did they go through? Yeah, they didn't. They are going to be so in France. Essentially, the 18th spot, the 16th spot, it's like you're not relegated, but you go to playoff
Yeah.
against a team. They just do it differently there,
Hmm.
and it looks like they lost to Metz.
Okay,
So-
so they'll be going down to Ligue 2.
The league, yeah, and then it's sad that they also lost the French Cup final.
Hmm.
Yeah, so it'd have been funny if they won somehow against PSG, won to Ligue 2, they qualified for the Europa League. That would have been like a Tottenham story again.
Yeah.
But yeah, Saint Etienne and Montpellier obviously are not going through. They're going, which is kind of crazy. Saint Etienne is a major French club too. Back in the day, they were really good. Montpellier too. They played the Champions League before. But yeah, what do you think about this French league?
Yeah, I think, it's kind of as expected. PSG, I mean, I think there's a lot of parallels with the Premier League, really, because we knew PSG were going to win the league for a long time. But the European race was a lot more interesting this season in Ligue 1 than it has been. Strasbourg in seventh on 57 points, Monaco in third with 61 points. So there's only 4 points between third place and seventh place, and it did kind of come down to the final couple of match days, I think, too, as to who was going to play in Champions League versus Europa League versus Premier League. So, even though the title race wasn't as interesting, I think the other things that were going on throughout the season definitely were.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
definitely. You want to talk about Liga?
Should
La
we-
Liga.
La Liga.
Yeah, you want to take
So, La Liga champions were Barcelona this season. Barcelona, in the end, finishing 4 points ahead of Real Madrid, who finished in second. Atletico in fourth. Athletic Club of Bilbao in fourth. Sorry, Atletico are in third, not fourth. My bad. And then Spain also got the extra Champions League spot this season. So fifth place, Villarreal also go into the Champions League, which is huge for them. But yeah, the title race. This was interesting for quite a while. For a big portion of the season, Real Madrid, Atletico Madrid, and Barcelona were kind of all close together. They were all keeping up with each other. But then, Atletico kind of had a drop off in form a little bit, and Real and Barcelona kind of battling it out. But what a crazy season it's been for Real Madrid. I mean, aside from the Super Cup, trophyless.
Yeah, that is. I think they won another trophy. Correct me if I'm wrong. I think they won did they win the Spanish Super Cup? No, they lost it. They lost the Copa del Rey final too.
They lost the Copa del Rey.
Yeah, that's the only thing.
I think they just won the UEFA Super Cup, which some people don't necessarily consider to be a serious
they won
trophy.
it's not the Club World Cup anymore, but it's the national something trophy.
Oh.
Yeah, they call it the Intercontinental Cup now.
Oh, okay.
Because even though they have the Club World Cup that they have this summer, they also talk about they also have the International Cup, so they won that. So I mean, that's the thing. People don't really consider those as major trophies, but they are still major trophies technically, international trophies. So it wasn't a trophyless season for them, but
yeah,
obviously they lost essentially. I think Barcelona won everything in Spain this season: the Copa del Rey, Spanish Super Cup, and then obviously La Liga.
Yeah, the trophies. I think the trophies that they really would have wanted to win, they didn't.
Yeah, absolutely. So it still wasn't a bad season. I mean, at least to the standard, it was a bad season, but for it wasn't a bad season for them. And also Mbappe. To be honest, I don't know if you remember beginning of last season, I was telling you that how I wasn't seeing anybody win anything this season. At least
Mm-hmm.
the first season, I was expecting them to roll over everybody, but I was obviously wrong about that. They stopped the quarterfinals of the Champions League, and then even though Mbappe, the personal level, he started pretty slow, but obviously I told everybody like give him time,
He came
and
good.
he won the gold how you call it,
Yeah, the golden
the
shoe
golden boots
in
shoe
Europe.
in Europe, which is how awarded to the best scorer across all the leagues.
Mm-hmm.
He was also, I think it was like the top scorer in the Liga. Let me check that.
Yeah, I believe so.
Mr. Stats, goals. Yes, 31 goals.
Mm-hmm.
Top scorer in the Liga, 31 goals, which is a lot, you know. That was like pretty much level, almost Ronaldo and Messi level. So
yeah, I think he wasn't really the issue. There was other issues,
Mhm.
and of course they let Ancelotti go. He's now
Mhm.
the manager of the Brazil national team, with Xabi Alonso coming in to be the Real Madrid first team manager. So it'll be interesting to see kind of how that develops over the next season. And he had a great season at Leverkusen, or he had a great couple of years at Leverkusen. So be interesting to kind of see how he does with that next big step up, and it's a very big step up for him.
That makes sense.
But yeah, I think Barcelona definitely best team in the league, and they deserved to be there.
You want to move on to La Serie A.
We were on to Serie A.
Serie A was actually interesting this season. Napoli and Inter were pretty much battling into the last game of the season, and eventually Napoli, with our good old Antonio Conte, won. This guy's a serial winner. It's a new era for them, because they won the season like 2 seasons ago. It was the first time in 40 years, something like that, and now they're winning that back again, winning it again. So Inter, they lost the Champions League final and in the Serie A, and I think, correct me if I'm wrong, they also lost to Milan, not in the final, but one of the close to the final. They lost there, so they pretty much didn't win anything this season. Inter, they have. You go ahead. You have to go again next season. But Atalanta, they're gonna be back in the Champions League. Juventus in the Champions League still. Roma barely missed out with 69 points, and AC Milan, the great AC Milan, they've fallen so off, 63 points, and they're not gonna be in the Champions League.
Yeah.
No any European competition.
At all. Yeah.
So we're gonna see what happens. But Serie A, I think I'm gonna pay more attention to Serie A because it was very entertaining this season. We'll see what happens.
Yeah, I think Serie A is definitely becoming, and we've talked about this before, over the last few years. It's become a much more interesting, and it's become a much closer league. And yeah, the fact that this was probably the most interesting title race within the big five leagues in Europe. Kind of came down to the final day. All of the others had kind of already more or less been decided by that point. Heartbreaking for Inter, I suppose, because they were so close to winning the league and they lost that. So close to the Champions League as well, and they lost that. Their manager moved on to Saudi Arabia as well, so they're bringing somebody else in. So it kind of be a fresh start for them. I think you have to give a lot of credit to Napoli and Antonio Conte, though. I mean, that's their they won, like you said, they won the league for the first time in a long time, a couple of years ago, and then they're back up there again this year. So credit to them. You want to look at Bundesliga?
The Bundesliga. Yeah, Bundesliga. So Harry Kane, finally.
Harry Kane got his trophy finally. I'm happy for him. I know you've been saying that. You've been saying that all season. That,
that's his year. 2025 is his year, man. Finally.
And yeah, it was good to see. I think he's a player that's deserved probably more trophies than just the one in his career, but good moment for him. I think, Vincent Kompany is somebody that we've both been impressed with this season, a young manager coming in, doing a really, really good job. Bayern are always expected to win the Bundesliga, but I think Leverkusen last year showed that's not always the case. And Leverkusen did finish second, but in the end they were quite far behind.
They had no chance
in the end.
Yeah, dominated by Bayern as we used to. And then Dortmund, they will really struggle, and they somehow managed to be in the Champions League,
Hmm.
which I'm happy for them. I mean, Dortmund is a Champions League team, no matter what people say. I mean, I'm not saying they're never going to win it again, but they're always in the Champions League,
Yeah.
so that's kind of expected to have them there.
Hmm.
But yeah, and Eintracht Frankfurt, they also managed to be in the Champions League spot. So the Champions League spot is, I mean, it's not a trophy, but it's like being in the Champions League is like it's the elite
Yeah.
of European football. So whenever you make the Champions League, like you have to be happy about this. I feel like us as Chelsea fans, we kind of like, I feel like we take it for granted. As the past couple of years have shown us that we shouldn't take it for granted.
Mhm.
Being in the Champions League is like elite. Even like turning on your TV, seeing your team in the Champions League is like it's elite.
Yeah.
So every team that makes the Champions League is like should never take it for granted. So I will never take it for granted again ever. Like see Chelsea there, like I'll be like, okay, top four, you didn't win anything. I'm happy with that.
Yeah.
So
Yeah, for sure.
Mhm.
We'll look at the Liga Portugal.
Yep.
Which the winners there. This was another really good title race.
Mhm.
Between Sporting and Benfica, they really kind of were very close, and in the end,
Mhm.
Sporting finished 2 points ahead of Benfica to win the league, which is kind of, I think, even more impressive, having lost their manager mid-season.
Mhm.
But yeah, they got the job done. I think one of the surprises for me is just kind of how far behind Porto were. Porto, usually a very, very strong team, one that, like you said, has kind of been in that elite of being in the Champions League, and they ended up finishing 11 points behind Sporting in the end, and kind of seen them. They lost to Inter Miami in the Club World Cup, which we'll get there too. But they struggled a little bit. But credit to Sporting for winning the league, and kind of an interesting title race.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah, definitely. Sporting, even though they lost their manager, they ended up winning the league still, and Benfica second and Porto third. And yeah, it's exciting, honestly. To have so many different leagues and see this season was gonna win. But yeah, we'll see what happens next season for them for sure.
Absolutely.
So we want to take a break before.
Let's take a break, and then we'll talk about the Club World Cup. All right, we are back, and for this final part of the episode, we're going to talk a little bit about the Club World Cup that has been ongoing. As we record, we have had I think every team has played 2 group stage matches. So by the time this goes out, you'll probably already know who's through to the knockouts, and maybe even some of the knockout results too. But we're just going to give our thoughts about the tournament so far and some of the standout results. What have you made of it so far?
Honestly, I think it's a really good tournament. I mean, to be honest, like there's some games that I have no interest in watching. Like some one-sided teams, and for example, Bayern Munich destroyed Auckland City like 10-0. Like I'm sorry, like no offense to Auckland City, but I have no interest in watching that.
Yeah.
Just some games that I'm interested, but it's just like the World Cup. Like some especially with the 48 format now, there'll be like Kazakhstan against, I don't know, Bolivia. That could happen. I mean, no offense to those 2 countries. I'm sure that 2 great countries, amazing 2 great countries. But I'm not going to watch that.
It's not the kind of game that's going to get people overly excited unless you're from those countries.
Yeah, exactly. So, the first, the group stage was kind of what we expected anyways. But I think whenever the team will go to knockout stages, that's when the tournament really will start.
Yeah.
But we've seen some great games so far.
Mm-hmm.
The Brazilian teams have been so far undefeated as of today, June 23rd, after two games from all of the teams. So it's exciting to see who's going to win this. I'm very excited, honestly. Inter Miami also won 2-1 against Porto. And then Botafogo beat PSG, and Chelsea lost 3-1 to Flamengo. So they beat some really good games, honestly, and I'm really excited to see. what's going to happen. What
Yeah.
about you, Ale? What do you think about
Yeah,
the
I
current
think
World Cup?
I'll be honest, I kind of expected it to be a little bit of a disaster because you have um, a lot of teams coming at the end of a very long season, coming out to conditions where it's been very, very hot. There's been kind of rain delays and storms and like interruptions with weather and things like that. I think I my expectation was that maybe it would be a bit disappointing, but it's actually not been that way. I've been very impressed um, with the South American teams, like you said, particularly the Brazilian teams. They really seem to be taking this very seriously. Not that others aren't in terms of the 11s that they're putting out, but I think um, I don't know. I just think there's maybe a bit more of an expectation among the European teams that this is an easy competition, and the like you said earlier, the Brazilian teams and the Argentinian teams are not going to let that happen easily. Um,
Absolutely.
yeah, I think I haven't watched too many of the games. I've watched a few. Um, you mentioned Bayern Munich against Auckland City. I didn't watch that one, but that doesn't surprise me. For those of you that don't know, Auckland City are actually a team with part-time players, so their players are not even full-time professionals. Um, which I don't know how I feel about them being in a competition that's being advertised as the best of the best in the world playing each other. Um, I don't know. That doesn't seem right to me. But at the end of the day, those players, they'll have stories to tell. They played against Harry Kane, Musiala, Leroy Sané. But some of the great Bayern players, even Benfica too, they played against. That one was 6-0.
Mm-hmm.
Um, they're probably going to end not scoring a goal, but as long as they've had a great time and enjoyed themselves, fair enough. But um, yeah, I think that the game that I watched that was the most interesting. So where I saw Boca Juniors against Benfica that finished 2-2. That was quite a good game.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and what was the other one that I watched that was a good game? Well, yeah, I mean, PSG losing to Botafogo was an interesting one. I mean, that was quite a surprise, really.
Mm-hmm.
PSG, European champions, we talked about how good they've been this season. And, Botafogo, one of the top teams in Brazil, beating them, and that's a great result for them. So it's definitely been good. Like it's like a lot of these kind of competitions, it always throws up some surprises that you're not expecting. And I think the you know the, there's been conversations about the lack of attendance at some games and the weather affecting things, but I feel like what do FIFA expect if they're scheduling a game at 1 p.m. in Miami in June?
Yeah,
It's gonna be hot.
exactly. Yeah.
So yeah, and then we are of course off to Chelsea's final group game tomorrow against Esperance de Tunis, which we're hoping for a good result there. You'll know the result of that by the time this goes out, but looking forward to being at that game and kind of taking it all in.
Absolutely. Yeah, we'll be there cheering for Chelsea. You guys better win. I'm gonna be so pissed.
It's gonna be fine.
Yeah,
It'll be just fine.
we should be able to win this. So
yeah. Yeah, but in terms of kind of predictions about the rest of the tournament, what do you think, or I mean, how do you feel that it's shaping up in terms of favorites? I mean, I don't know. We were saying this too off camera. There's not really a clear favorite emerging right now. But if you had to make a prediction, what would you say?
I honestly, I'm gonna make a bold prediction here, and I'm gonna go with the Brazilian team. I don't know which one is gonna win, but this is what I'm gonna predict. I think that it's gonna be a European team and a Brazilian team in the final, and I think that the Brazilian team is gonna win it because the European team is gonna think that UEFA we're gonna just win whatever. But if you want my, it depends on what you like. For my heart, I want Chelsea to win. Obviously, we still have a chance because in the final, when we go to the let's say after we beat Esperance Tunis, we'll go to round of 16. We're gonna play Bayern Munich. So if we beat Bayern Munich, at the side of the table, you're gonna see that the toughest opponent we're gonna have on the road to the final is Manchester City. We won't meet them until the semifinals. Right? And we know City. We play them. We could beat them. I'm not saying it's given. It's City.
Yeah.
We could beat them. If we beat them, then we have to place everybody else, that Real Madrid, PSG, all those other teams on the other side of the bracket. So we could play those teams, and then we could win. So there's still a chance. Those players have to wake up and hope that put their on the best performance. Because imagine once you're Club World Cup champions for 4 years, so that's huge. That's going to be like the Club World Cup champions for 4 years. It's going to be huge. So I really hope that because we don't know if we're going to be in the Club World Cup next edition. We don't know when we're going to be in the Club World Cup again.
Yeah.
So this is a huge thing. Let's hope that we manage to win. It'll be possible, but if you want me to put my money on it, I will pick a Brazilian team.
Yeah.
For some reason, I don't know why. I have a bad feeling that European team are gonna fumble this one.
I think it's an interesting prediction. I think you could very well be right. From my perspective, I don't know why I'm really saying this. It's kind of based on what I've been watching and like interviews I've been reading, but it really feels like of all the European teams, Bayern Munich are taking this the most serious. Mm-hmm. And they really, really want to win it. Mm-hmm. So I'm going to go against you, and I'm going to say I think Bayern Munich will win. So
you think we're going to go to round of 16 and lose there?
I think we will, unfortunately.
Okay.
I'd love to be wrong about that. I would love to be wrong about that prediction, but I don't know. Unfortunately, I don't see it. I don't know if I see it happening realistically.
People are saying that Inter Miami will win. That FIFA is going to make a way for Inter Miami to win. And I'm like, okay.
I mean, no disrespect to the MLS, but if an MLS team wins the Club World Cup, we might as well just stop football.
Yeah. We're going to be like, you know what? No more Club World Cup. That will be a testament that this is not going to work. So just close the shop. Over.
Yeah. But anyway, we'd love to know what you guys think. And obviously by the time this episode goes out, there'll be some more results and you'll know a little bit more about the competition, but it won't be the final yet. So we'd love to know your thoughts on kind of what your predictions are and how you think it's going to go. And it's been really a great season 2 for the JCMoseley FC podcast.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, a really, really good season, honestly. We talked about it was a roller coaster season. Chelsea was in title race for the longest time, and then we stopped being in title race. And then at the end of the day, I think we're happy. In the Champions League final, not Champions League final. I wish we are in the Champions League next season, and then we won the Conference League. So exciting times. Let's see what happens next season. And I'm excited, honestly, for the first episode. We're probably gonna shoot it around in August.
Yeah.
So about 2 months from now.
Yeah, we'll take a couple months off, and then we'll be back with you for the new season. But thank you again to everybody that listens and watches. We appreciate you all, and we'll see you again very soon.
Yeah, see you soon.